So the first one I want to talk about is really the definition of FME server, and that is FME server is automation. So what does that mean? Well, we'll talk about what that means for FME server, but first, why do we actually care about automation? So the first thing we can think about when we think about automation is if people are not doing things in an automatic fashion, they're having to manually edit data, they're having to click and do things and take time. And time, as they say, is money because you have to pay people. But more than just that, you have to, if people don't have extra time, that means they don't have time to innovate. So if you don't automate, you don't give people time to innovate. And then the third kind of reason is if you don't allow people to do more interesting things, they may get bored. And so really automating gives you money, it gives you innovation, and it gives you the ability to have happier employees. So that's why you should automate. But what is automation to FME server? Really, it's when there's an event, and then after that event, something happens to trigger FME server. That is FME server actually runs a workspace, and then there is an action on the end. So we're going to be talking about some of the events and some of the actions today and to show basically why FME server can automate practically everything. Now the first thing that a lot of people do with FME server, it's very common, is just to schedule a data transformation task. Very common first step for automation. You set a schedule, you pick a date, you pick a time, you pick how often you want it, then you pick the actual workspace that you want to run. And then a new feature for 2014 is the ability to then send an email after your schedule is complete, so you can know whether it was successful or if there was a problem and it failed. So that's one of the first ways people will automate. Then a lot of people will say, well, you know what, I need to run multiple workspaces one after another. They have to be, the first one has to be successful, and then the second one can run, and then the third one, and so on and so forth. So I need a little bit more complexity there. And so we have a transformer that allows you to do that. You build up this workspace which runs child workspaces underneath. So it's kind of like a controller workspace, and it uses a transformer called the FME Server Job Submitter Transformer. A change for this release that we've made is we've made it so that that transformer doesn't require an extra engine or extra license to run. It just runs kind of in the same bubble and just runs that child workspace. When it's complete, returns control back, and then passes that off to the next step in the process. And we're going to have a whole presentation on that later on. But that's the next thing, scheduling complex or workflows. Then when you're talking about automation, a good framework to have is some sort of notification service. And we've got this publish and subscribe methodology to our framework here. It allows you to publish events, data up to FME server, run that workspace, and then have other actions subscribe to those events coming out of a workspace. And I'm going to talk about some of the events and the actions. New event for this release is this new publisher, I should say, as well, is the directory watch publisher. And what does it do? It watches a directory. When there are changes, new files, deleted files, or updates to files, a notification is sent to FME server. From there you can do, well, you can do whatever you want. So what's one example? Here's an example, and I'll walk through it, and then we'll actually go and do this demo. I've got a DWG file. I'm going to send that in, drop that into a directory. It's watched by FME server, so it's going to detect that file, convert it to shape, send it back, put it into the resource area there, send me an email, and that email will contain a link to go and get that file. So using a bunch of new stuff for 2014. So I'm going to do the demo now, and I'm going to come in here and resources. This is a new area for 2014, and really it's an area where you can put data up onto FME server and it persists there. So some people were uploading data, but they wanted it to persist on the server, and so now you can do that. And there's a bunch of other reasons to use this resource area, which we'll talk about throughout the day. But here I've got a folder. I'm going to drop a directory in there, or rather a file, a DWG file. Let me find it. Okay, K26, I haven't done that one. I'm going to click upload, and I'm going to drop that file in there. So it goes into that directory, and then it's being converted to shape, it's being put into a certain directory, it's being zipped, and I get an email that says, oh, your conversion is completed, perfect. And you can go and you can download that zip file. If I download it, I can then open that in Finder, show it in Finder. See, I'm running on Mac here for you Mac fans, but it is running on, actually it's running on an FME cloud server, which is Linux technically. So no Windows here today, but you can use it on Windows, of course. I'm going to open this zip file here, and there's our shape file. So DWG to shape emailed to me. All I had to do was drop that file in that directory. Now I want to show you quickly how this works. We got the resources folder. So how are we watching this thing? Well, over here in notifications, there's that publication, and I'll take a look at this one. It's of type directory watch. It's watching this directory, and then it's going to this topic. So from there, that goes into a workspace, and that workspace is right here. In here, we actually come and figure out if it's a file we're interested in. It always comes in as JSON from the publishers, so we flatten that out, deal with it, and we come across here, and we actually use that new FME Server job submitter capability to run a job underneath the hood. So basically, it's a sub-child job that's dedicated just to converting DWG to shape. So I have a controller which orchestrates, and then we have a sub-child job that actually does just the shape to DWG to shape conversion. Then we copy the file into a resources folder. I'll show you that in a sec, and we send an email out to that user. So if I come back to our web interface, to resources, we will see there's our input where we put our file, and there's also our output there. So we wrote that back into a resources folder. The great thing about all of these files in here is they're web addressable through the FME Server REST API. And we'll talk more about that later. A new feature for this for SP2 coming up is these can be UNC network file shares. So you can watch network file shares, drop files into those directories using just Windows Explorer or something like that, and have them basically the same process you just saw happen. Okay, we'll keep going. So yeah, so the first thing a user did was email me and said, you know what, this is what I want to do, and we couldn't support network file shares in the release, but we can now. Is I've got thousands of CAD files in the directory, subdirectories. These operators are updating them every day, and I need the changes to be reflected in my GIS database. So what are you going to do for me? So this is basically how this workflow works, and in SP2 you're able to do it. Files are updated and sent to a ToDo list, which is really just a database table recording the file paths. So they go throughout the day, there's edits being made. Each night a schedule comes along, kicks off FME Server and says, okay, what's the to-do list? What files should I put into the database? Goes and gets the files from the database and loads them in. And we'll see an example of this tomorrow. We're doing a real-time webinar, so check that out. Tomorrow we're gonna go through this example. Another way of kicking off FME Server is database triggers. So it doesn't have to be a schedule. It can be an actual trigger in a database. And this is kind of like a row watcher. So we have a directory watcher. This is like a row watcher, which as there are new rows inserted into the database, those IDs can be sent up to FME Server. From there, well, you can do whatever you want. And I'll show you an example coming up. Another way of kicking off an automated workflow is to send an email into FME Server with an attachment, and that attachment can then be transformed, edited, whatever you want to load into a database, that sort of thing. And so that brings me to an example actually, and I'll show this example off. What are we doing in this example? We're sending an email into FME Server. I'm a contractor, you can imagine. I've got a DWG file. I want to submit it to, say, a government or some organization. I email it into FME Server. A workspace does a number of checks on it to see is it valid or not. If it's not, we get a report back sent by email to the person who's submitting it. If it is valid, it goes into a database. And so now we're going to run through that demo. And this one's on FME Server, or on FMEPD, I should say, so you can go and check that out at any time. You can fork it on GitHub, you can download it, it's up to you. So I'm going to download the good and the bad files. These are the demo data sets in DWG format. Here's the email that I need to send, the address that I need to send to, and I can put anything in here. Here is my data, and I can attach this file here should be in downloads, the bad data. So we're going to data that doesn't pass validation first. Send that off. So now that's going up to FME server, just as I described. The workspace is looking through, is the geometry good, are the attributes good, and good meaning, do they meet a certain domain, are there none of them blank, is there integers where there should be integers, and that sort of thing. And what we'll get back in due time is a little report that says, no, your data is not good, it's bad. Okay, and here it is, it failed. So we got an email back from FME server. I can open this up, and the report we've done here is actually HTML. Could have been a text file, could have been PDF, whatever we want. But here it's saying, oh, in that data there's some diameter attributes which are invalid, so you're gonna have to clean that up. But also there's some geometries here, and it looks like maybe somebody was a little bit asleep when they were digitizing, so back to the shop, you got to clean that up. And we can imagine we're really quick, we've cleaned that up, and now we're going to put, okay, I'm awake now, and I can send off data. And what's the data? Let's go and grab that good data right here. Okay, so the good stuff, I've cleaned it up, sending it off. Another cool feature of this example, we'll see it coming up here, is the data will be sent into a database if it's valid. There's a database trigger on that database, so we talked about that. That's going to push the IDs up to FME server. The workspace will grab those IDs and say, okay, I'm going to push this out to WebSockets, and it'll be drawn on this map, and here it is. It's drawn on here. Pushed directly through WebSockets, new HTML5 standard that's emerging, and it no refreshing the page, no AJAX involved, all through FME server. So a bunch of things that play there, but all pretty much automated by just sending an email. Okay. And so another way that people want to automate is they don't necessarily just want to write to their file system. They want to write to FTP sites, because a lot of people have to drag and drop that. Or they want to write to something like S3, which is a web addressable file storage system in the cloud. And we support both of those. And in gray here, we've got a couple: Dropbox, Box.com. I should add Google Drive to that list that we're going to look to add support for as resource folders. So you'll map them, you'll be able to use them just like any other file system in FME server. So look for that in the future. We can do FTP and S3 right now though. Enterprise, if you are using JMS in your enterprise to link different systems, very common with bigger organizations. We support sending and receiving JMS messages. If you're kind of looking at the future of using Amazon as your messaging service, we support SQS as well. And speaking of Amazon, if you are looking to send a lot of messages, a lot of notifications, I'd highly recommend taking a look at the Simple Notification Service. It's made to scale for sending huge volumes of messages to mobile devices or to SMS. We can send to Google devices, so Android. We can send to iPhones. We can email. But when you start to need massive amounts of that, then you want to look at something like Amazon SNS here, which we fully support. So that's kind of a whirlwind look at why FME server is automation. There's so much more in there. I didn't even mention we have a new method for doing email in Service Pack 1, which is IMAP, which opens up that possibility to a lot more people. And there's so much more coming.